So good to hear the voice again of Kenn Marshall on the line with us this morning. Our visit is presented by Marcus & Mack, voted the best law firm and the best personal injury lawyer 4 years in a row. And the Best of Indiana County contest, visit them online at marcusandmack.com. We spoke to Kenn for a lot of years as the spokesperson for the state system of higher education. As I mentioned, Kenn is a graduate of Purchase Line and of IUP. And he's now an author, and the book is called Tomorrow's Game, Stories of Baseball and Family. And Kenn Marshall is on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Kenn. There we go. There we go. I had to press the right button here, but it's good to have you on with us here this morning.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Now, this is not a story of Stan Bem and Jim Clapp and Owen Doherty, is it?
No, it is not. There are some people who who I grew up with in Indiana County who are certainly mentioned in the book, but this is primarily a lot of my memories. Baseball has been a big part of my life. I can't ever remember not playing it. Mm-hmm. One of my earliest memories is I used to stand in our front yard and throw a rubber ball against the porch steps and have that ball come back at me. And growing up in the 60s, if that was a fly ball, I was Roberto Clemente catching that ball, although I never could quite master his basket catch. If it was a grounder, it was probably I was probably Bill Mazeroski. So it was just this is a story of how baseball has been such a big part of my life, and how my family has been there every step of the way.
And I grew up the same way. We called it step ball, and we had all kinds of systems set up, and there were two of us that could play it, or you could play it all by yourself. You could spend hours doing that, couldn't you?
Absolutely, and I did. And we had a little baseball field sort of set up in our side yard, and we had a 2-person wiffle ball league, because growing up in Gypsy, we didn't have a lot of kids. So we had 6 of us, and there were 2 players on a team, and we played some pretty serious wiffle ball games in that side yard as well.
I bet you did. But Kenn, growing up at the time that you did, it's a wonderful time, because you've got baseball played the way it was in the 60s and the early 70s, and you had names like Gene Alley and Bill Mazeroski, and of course, I told you my first favorite Pirate was Matty Alou, and he was right there in center field alongside Roberto Clemente, and Stargell was in left. It was just a great time to be a follower of the Buccos, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. In fact, my very first game at Forbes Field, I saw Bill Mazeroski hit a home run. Not the one that most people think about. Not the one that won the World Series in 1960. This was in 1965. It was a doubleheader against the New York Mets. And back then, that was a big road trip for my family to go, all the way to Pittsburgh. But we saw a doubleheader against the Mets. The Pirates won both games. Mazeroski hit a home run, and Clemente had 4 hits in the 2 games.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience with professional baseball.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen hundreds of games since then.
Yeah. Well, what is it about baseball that grabbed you, Kenn, as a young guy playing the game, and as somebody who's been able to follow it for all your life?
I think it's something that, I always played with my friends. With my brother and I were 2 years apart. We played on the same teams all the time. Our family road trips that we went on, and those have continued. One of the sort of the second part of my book is, since I retired, one of the things I did is I had sort of a bucket list item to attend a Major League Baseball game at every current stadium, all 30 of them. I completed that quest, if you will, about a year and a half ago. And the really neat thing about that was my wife was with me by my side for every one of those games, and our daughter went on several of the road trips with us as well. So it just seems like every time I was at a game, initially it was mom and dad and my brother Chris, and then friends in college, my wife, my daughter, my son and his family. We 2 or 3 times a year we pack in the family minivan and drive down to Pittsburgh and to PNC to see a game. so many times. And I remember, again, my dad was 38 when I was born, so I never saw him play on a team.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of his friends used to tell me, your dad was a pretty good ball player. And I asked him once, and he said, well, I could hit the ball a little bit. And he said I had to because I couldn't run very fast. And we would go over, when our other brothers were home, and we'd go over to the ball field in Gypsy, and would throw my dad a dozen baseballs, and would have to be hunting in the woods for 10 of them, even when he was in his 50s. And it was no effort at all. He could just crush the ball. So I imagine he could play a little bit. I had a grandfather, and the story about my grandfather is, again, he died before I was born, but there are, I guess, rumors or, stories that people tell that the Homestead Grays played in Gypsy once, and my grandfather played against them. I don't know if that's true. I kind of wish it is, but it's just so many things in my life are tied to baseball, and it's just been and it was a real joy. I mean, I just had so much fun writing this book, just remembering everything I could about about growing up and those baseball games, and it's also really neat. I didn't remember all the details, but with the internet nowadays, you can get the box score from a game back in 1965, which I did for that first game I went to at Forbes Field.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you make the decision. You're actually going to sit down and you're going to write this thing. Probably, I'm sure these stories have been floating around in your mind for a long, long time. And to finally sit down and do this, was it a difficult process for you to gather it all together in your mind and present it, or is it something that just flowed pretty naturally?
It just sort of flowed naturally. I was amazed at how easy it came. I hear people, writing the great American novel, and I'm not saying that that's what this is, but, in it taking years and years and years. I wrote this book literally in about a month and a half of just sitting down, a couple evenings a week and and every time I started writing, I would remember something else. Back in 1980, when I was a student at IUP, I had an internship with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mm-hmm. And that summer, I saw every baseball game at Three River Stadium between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And some of the neatest experiences in the world. I don't know if you remember Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, David Lander. Mm-hmm. He was a part owner of the Pirates AAA affiliate in Portland, Oregon at the time. The Actors Guild was on strike that summer, so he would come in, on weekends when the Pirates were home. And he invariably, I don't know why, but he almost always sat next to me. So I was, I'd sit next to Squiggy all watching baseball and, believe it or not, cracking jokes with each other. And I did make him laugh a few times. I don't remember how, but I know he did. And then, I saw the closest thing to a perfect game that you could probably see. Jim Bibby pitching against the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, yeah.
Gave up a hit to the first batter, got the next 27 out. So
man, what a game that was!
Except for that leadoff hit, and I saw a 20 inning game. I was, I think, threatened by Dave Parker. I don't think he was real serious, but he was in a pretty grumpy mood one night. I would stick around the clubhouse as an intern until all the media was gone. And one night, Dave Parker came out of the little lounge here where they had food for the players after the games, and he just kind of looked down at me, which was, he was 6'5", I'm 5'8", 5'9". Mm-hmm. He just kind of glowered at me and said, "How'd you like me to throw that bat rack over your head?" And I said, "Not really." And he just kind of grinned and walked away. So, just those kind of things, they just kept popping into my head. All kind of things like that. And so it actually came together pretty easily. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people will be interested in buying it, but I think it's nostalgic. Again, it's they're just stories, of my memories. And I'm glad I wrote it because my kids will have it. I think they'll appreciate it. My family, a lot of my friends, because, some of them who are mentioned in there. So it was just a lot of fun to write.
Ken, tell me about choosing the title, Tomorrow's Game.
Tomorrow's Game is one of the, again, growing up, Roberto Clemente was my idol. And I still remember the night, or when he died in the plane crash on New Year's Eve in 1972. Mm-hmm. My mother came into my bedroom that next morning and told me, I was 13 at the time, and I'm not ashamed to admit I just cried because he was my hero. And he had a quote. It said, "All that matters is tomorrow's game," which exemplified how serious he took baseball. But he also said, anytime you have a chance to make a difference in the world and you don't, you're wasting your time on Earth. So he was a humanitarian as well. I mean, everybody knows, you know about Clemente, you know he died in a plane crash trying to deliver earthquake supplies to Nicaragua. So he was a tremendous individual, a tremendous ball player. But the Tomorrow's Game is, again, is taken from one of his famous quotes. And my daughter actually suggested that to me, that I use that as the quote, because she knows how I feel about Roberto Clemente. Mm-hmm. In fact, the last chapter of my book, chapter 21, appropriately, is basically I just pay homage to Clemente, and just the whole chapter is about nothing more than the memories I have of him as a player and as a humanitarian. You know, a lot of people say that athletes don't deserve to be looked up to as idols. I think some do, and I certainly think Clemente is a person who you can't have a better role model than Roberto Clemente.
Absolutely. Ken, tell me how people can get their hands on your book.
It is available at most online retailers. You can go to Amazon. You can go to barnesandnoble.com. I am hoping, and I'm trying to work right now on getting to do some book signings, and I'm hoping to come to Indiana and maybe do a book signing there. But if you want it right away, you can order it from, like I said, online retailers. Amazon and Barnes and Noble are the two probably most well-known, and you can just go to those websites, click in Tomorrow's Game, and the book's right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kenn Marshall, so good to catch up with you again. Thanks for visiting with us this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day today.
You too.
It's Indiana in the Morning on WCCS.